Okay. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Hey, Chantal, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to connect with you. So before we start, I just want to mention quickly, for those of you who are new to following my stuff or who have seen things about TEA but aren't quite sure what it is. TEA is my signature program, which we are talking to Rebecca about today, as she's one of my previous clients and forever soul sister. Soul sisters, really. And TEA
Yeah.
is really my ever evolving, self-empowered, multidimensional healing program. That's a lot, but this program is very expansive. And I think multidimensional
Yeah,
healing is kind of what is sticking out to me now, because it just keeps evolving. And we just really focus on self-mastery and soul healing. That's kind of the way I like to put it. But just with a really self-empowered focus. So as far as you, Rebecca, the way I'm
Mm.
describing you is a multidimensional healer. How do you feel about that?
Um, it's funny because I'm still working on accepting the term healer for
Yes.
myself.
Yes, that's a good
But yeah,
point.
but no, I totally, yeah, I totally am.
You are, and that's funny. And like you said, you're just accepting that, and it's so funny because I would say probably no one that initially joined TEA would have considered themselves healers, and I didn't even consider myself, like, I didn't fully own that until probably since I started TEA. So even though
Mm.
this was a
Yeah,
multi-dimensional healing program, I was like, oh, on the fence about that. And you guys were like, oh, me? No, we're not healers.
yeah, and it's
But
funny because you're like,
that's what you are.
yeah, well, it's funny because you're like, oh, I want to heal the world. I've got this vision where, I'm going to make a difference in the world. I'm going to make the world a better place. And you might do
Yes.
some trainings, like I've done trainings in shamanic healing, but then, actually accepting the word healer, it's like, really? Me?
Yeah. And I think that, like, immediately just brings me to going down to this deeply rooted wound, especially, this wounded divine feminine for us and the women in this group,
Mm,
is self-worth. I think that was a
yeah.
key part that we all
Yep.
realized, and it all clicked, and it was like, oh, we had to heal this in order
Mm,
to unlock those receiving codes and to expand and to receive abundance
yeah.
and all of those
Yep.
things. And accepting being a healer was part of that self-worth, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have just so much magic and so many really amazing offerings. And actually, I was thinking back and I was like, your gifts and your connection, it massively exploded, because before you started TEA, you were really connected. Like you said, you were doing shamanic healing, like you were
Mm,
certified for yoga, you have all these certifications, all of these spiritual things in your belt.
mm.
But even in TEA, you just became like 100 times more connected, and your gifts just like really
Mm.
expanded to the next level, right?
Yeah. Well, when we first met and I first made the decision that I was going to just jump in and do TA, and I had a lot of fear around that,
Yeah.
more about the financial commitment probably.
Hmm.
I was in Nepal at the time, and
Yes.
and I had no income. We were on a bit of a family holiday, and
Yeah.
we had to get back and start earning money and everything. But being in Nepal, really, because I was there running a retreat, and being in Nepal just really kind of, it really cracked something in me in a good way. I
Hmm.
didn't come back broken, but yeah, it
Yes.
really cracked something open. So yeah, this connection just really started to amp up for me when I was in Nepal then, and going through
Hmm.
TEA, it just, yeah, expanded even further. And when I look back, I was laying in bed last night thinking about this. When I look back to 12 months ago, it's like, yeah, I can see a big shift. But then when I look, say, 8 months ago, 6 months ago, even a few weeks ago, all of these
Yeah.
shifts and these upgrades and everything's just, it's getting rapidly faster and bigger. And I
Yes.
don't think it's going to stop.
It
I'm going to
just
slow down.
it gets more rapid, right? Like
It does. It does.
rapid and more expansive each time. And like, I love how you said you kind of cracked open in Nepal,
Mm,
and that is one of the things that we do in TEA. We consciously crack you open. We do the hard work, we do the inner work, we shadow
mm,
integration, all of this stuff.
yep.
And that to me is just conscious evolution. And I know a big thing for some of the women in this round was like coming to terms with the fact that energy is always moving around us, and we have a choice to either flow with it or work against it. And they were like, but it's kind of hard to flow with it because it kind of makes it seem like life is a little bit more difficult. And I was like, yeah, I get that, but at the same time, it's actually a lot more difficult if you try to ignore it or work against it. So you might as well just get on board and ride the wave, right?
Yeah. Well, resistance kind of takes a lot of energy. Like when we're kind of, and because I've been doing some more training, because I'm always doing training with something. And we were kind of talking about this, how, you know, being stuck in that low vibe area and those low frequencies and just resisting everything all the time takes a lot of energy, and it leaves you feeling tired all the time. But it's kind of what we're programmed to do, is what we're conditioned to believe. And it's really hard to be able to step back and say, okay, I'm just going to allow things to happen. I'm still finding it really hard. You know, you do a lot of human design in TEA, and I'm a generator. I have to be doing, I have to be going, I have to be productive. And if I'm not, there's discomfort there. And I think kind of that discomfort is because when and even if you're not a generator, but you're in this hustle mode all the time, you're masking all that stuff that really needs to come to the surface to be dealt with. And so you have a moment of quiet or allowing the flow, and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel good. Like,
absolutely,
I'm having memories, I'm having thoughts, I'm having feelings, and I can't have these because I'm not allowed.
That is so on point with like society, right? It's like that uncomfortable with just being. So it's like, let's be busy, let's hustle, let's go, because we're actually subconsciously masking everything, all of that programming, conditioning. And that's exactly what we have actually done in TEA, is decondition and rewire so we can expand. And it's exactly that programming you're talking about is, we're programmed to hustle, to go, to just do all these certain things, but that's not authentic to who we are as individuals. So it's once we learn, okay, this is kind of my energetic codes, or these are my soul codes, this is unique to me, it's really uncomfortable starting to step into that. Right? Yeah. I think as a society, we live under this cloud and this energy of repression and oppression, regardless of who we are. And I think a lot of the women in this round realized that there was this oppressive force or programming and conditioning, and stepping out from under that is very liberating, but it's scary too. It's really scary. And you said it right there. There was so many unbelievably common themes between the women in this collective, which I had wrote down a couple of things which I was thinking about specifically for you, that kind of you really worked on to heal. And like one of the first things that popped up was throat chakra. And that wasn't just you, that was literally everyone. Absolutely. I think it's a lifetime of us doing that. You know, the women who are called to this collective are, like I said, were women who have felt oppressed or repressed. And that goes way back past our ancestors, because at that point in time, women didn't have a voice, right? And we have a voice now, but we're still scared subconsciously. And it's in our DNA that that oppression, repression, whatever, it's in our DNA still. So we have to find that, locate it, and remove it and shift and evolve, so we can clear that and break that pattern for our next generations. And that is hard work.
That is hard work. I mean, I think a lot of the time, especially for people who, whether or not they know it, are being called forward as healers or light workers or way showers or whatever, some of that repression, that oppression comes from lifetimes ago, you know, contracts that we've made, you know, lifetimes ago, because we were burnt at the stake, or, you know, we believed something, or we had a gift and we knew that, you know, we couldn't express that because it was dangerous, like it was literally life-threatening. And so we had to push it down, and we've brought that into this lifetime now.
Exactly.
I'd put any money on it that most healers have had that experience in a previous lifetime.
And every single person who has gone through this collective, the same thing. It's like, I have these gifts, whatever they are, whether they think they're healing gifts or it's just their craft or their art or their passion, but we have this deeply rooted fear of sharing it with the world, because the fears of being judged, of being criticized, of being seen, those are really big fears. And those are really the visibility fears, right? And that goes back to the throat chakra as well. And then that kind of ties into those self-sabotaging patterns and beliefs. And we just sabotage ourselves to keep ourselves small and keep ourselves comfortable. But that is what blocks us from that greater success or freedom or wealth or joy or whatever you want to call it, right?
Totally.
But I feel like you nailed all of those things. Like, obviously we're always working on them, always. But if you think back to, say, December before you started TEA, and then you looked at when we finished in April, and then you look at now, you know, even just December to now, as far as, you know, those visibility fears or those money fears or just that throat chakra, how would you explain how that's changed for you?
Well, I definitely feel, I'm not going to say I feel 100% comfortable, but I feel less fearful and about kind of speaking up. And, you know, as certain gifts are developing, and, you know, I've started connecting with different, I guess, light beings and the like, and receiving those messages, actually sharing them without a fear of being called something or and not even crazy about being a fraud, or, you know, because those fraud fears, I think, are they're really huge for us. But
they are.
Yeah, the things that I write and I post and I talk about now, there's so much less fear about them. There's still discomfort, and I still catch myself going, you know, you can't post this. This isn't, you know, what are people going to think if you're posting this? Or, you know, this isn't, you know, in alignment. And I'm like, actually, no, it is in alignment. If I think back to who I truly am, it is in alignment. So there's less of that. There's probably still some second guessing there, but I listen to that second guessing less. I don't allow it to control me so much.
And that's the key, is like, we're always going to have those fears. We're going to have those doubts, and that's totally okay. Those are not bad things, but it's just like the key right there, you said, is being self-aware. Like, now you're self-aware, and you can say, okay, I realize this is my fear. I realize this is holding me back. Or you can sit and explore it and say, why am I fearful of this? What's actually going on here? And then you can make the choice. How am I going to move forward? And it's usually, I have to take this action, which is the scary part, right?
Yes. But the funny thing is, once you've taken that action, I don't know, part of you probably realizes that nothing bad has happened. And so it feels easier. And the next time you need to take that action, it feels easier again.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
so once you kind of get into this flow of taking action, it just becomes almost second nature, because all of that conditioning that we have is second nature to us. You know, that's what we kind of live by. But once you can kind of break out of that conditioning and come to a place where you're more in flow and just kind of, you know, following the flow bit by bit, it gets easier. So those things that used to be easy, that condition that held you back that used to be easy, that becomes, you know, something that you don't, you know, go back to as much. And that flow becomes more second nature.
That's exactly pattern disruption, right? And it's not quick, easy work. This work here is not quick and easy. Like, TEA is 14 weeks, but I always say to you guys, okay, this is your foundation for self-healing and conscious evolution and all of these things. But you're always going to have to come back to this, because the thing is, when we create new patterns, our ego always wants to bring us back to those old, comfortable, safe, not really serving us patterns. So it's always just going back to being connected and your practice and being self-aware, and then making that conscious choice to move forward. But it's a lot easier when you are truly connected to who you are and in tune. And that in itself is an art, right?
It is. And it's a daily art. Like, it's something that you have to keep coming back to every day. And I really like that in TEA, one of the things that you and Liana do quite a bit around is, you know, looking at, you know, cycles. And so we'll go through these natural cycles, and, you know, and they're usually very short cycles. So it'll be like, yes, everything's great and I'm expanded, and then we go back into the shadows, and then we heal something else, and then we come back out, and it's always kind of coming around, and it's getting comfy with those cycles and being able to go, okay, I'm not feeling it at the moment, but that's because, you know, I'm in some kind of shadow cycle, and there's something here that's needing to be healed, and it's coming up. I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to trust that this is going to pass, and then I'm going to come back out. And so I think there's this, I think some light workers and coaches, they do a real disservice to people by having people believe that once you get to this point of being, you know, really expansive and joyful and all of this stuff, that you're just going to stay there. But
yeah,
we're not. And that, you know,
no,
if you're not feeling this all the time, then you're blocking yourself from, you know, manifesting everything, because we're human as well. You know,
it's a constant cycle, and that wheel is
yeah.
always turning. So it's just like, I always kind of feel like it's the seasons, right? Like here in Canada, we have spring and summer and fall and winter, and every season kind of has its pros and cons. But then it changes and it changes and it changes, and then you go back to that and you start at the beginning again. And our life and our energy and our transformations are the same. Our awakening is the same. You know, we have the hard parts where we're really cracked open and we're like, why me? I don't know what I'm doing with myself or my life anymore. And then all of a sudden it changes and you're like, oh, I have clarity. Oh, this is new. I kind of want to go this direction. And then all of a sudden you're manifesting and actually bringing into reality all of that stuff that you have manifested months and months ago. It comes into reality, but then you start that cycle over again, and you kind of start at the bottom, and it's just a continuous cycle. And it's exactly like you said, but you have to be open to all of that work, not just the fun, joyful, expansive stuff. Even though you can choose those frequencies at any time, in reality, we still have to experience all the rest, right?
We do. And it's hard because we live in this society of instant gratification. And so we believe that, you know, if we're going to manifest something, if it hasn't happened straight away, you know, if I haven't asked for it today and I don't have it tomorrow, then it's not working. And there's a problem. Like,
then, you know, give up.
Things take
give
time.
up. I'm a failure. This isn't working. But when you kind of get in this, I think it's like just this really awakened state, right? And you're just in tune and you're connected, and you just feel the energy so deeply, and you know what season you're in, and you just know how to kind of hold through that and flow through it. You just kind of can shift, and it's just this interesting, it's different, it's living different, right? Consciously evolving is just living so different, because you're so heightened by everything, which can have its challenges for sure. But also it's just like this point of unlearning everything you've always learned and remembering who you are. And it's just like every day you feel like you get a little bit closer, but there's never an end point. It's just an ever evolving journey. It's just a big circle over and over and over and over and
over again.
But when you learn that, you find some peace in that too, right? I think
you do.
It took me a while.
I was kind of thinking that. Like even during those cycles of shedding and, you know, dealing with your shadows and all that, you can still find comfort in those. Like there's still like, I'm going through that at the moment. I'm a little bit less active on social media at the moment because you know, I'm going through this at the moment, but I'm trying to find the beauty in that and the comfort in that. And you know, I have my angsty moments where I'm like, oh my god, nothing's ever going to be bright and beautiful and sunny again. But it's nice when you kind of are able to find those moments of, you know, self-care, and you sit in your meditation, and it kind of, it's still there, but it melts away for a little bit, and you're like, okay, so, you know, I can go with this, I can do this, and you know, I can let all the things kind of come up and flow, and I can purge them, and I'm safe, and you learn how to hold space for yourself. And if you don't, you know that you've got people there who can hold space for you. You know, I had something very uncomfortable, almost traumatic happen a few weeks ago, and I was able to reach out to a friend, and she just, it was just by messenger, but she was able to hold space for me because I had that self-awareness and that ability to hold myself as well. She just kind of needed to be that backup person while I sat and did what I needed to do.
That's so powerful, because that's kind of essentially what we're doing in TEA is we're kind of eliminating those low vibes, those low patterns, all of those things that no longer serve us, and we're upgrading our energy, to put it kind of simply. And then we learn, so we're expanding that aura and our frequency, and then we're learning to hold that. And that is the real art, because like you said, we can expand our vibes and we can, you know, expand our aura and that frequency and raise that, but there's things in life that are going to hit you, and your external world is going to shift and change and crash and crumble. And I think, you know, it's safe to say for you or for me, for anyone in TEA a year ago, it would have set us back a lot longer than it does now. right?
Yeah.
And that's
You probably
the
wouldn't have left the
tangible
house.
proof.
You would have been like curled up in the fetal position, like
Right, crying.
just,
I
yeah.
just want to be under the covers, hiding,
Yeah,
crying.
yeah. And when I think about 10 years ago, where I was at 10 years ago, because I had some really chronic, difficult mental health stuff. Like it just, I mean, I don't know where it would have put me, but yeah, just if I think back to then, and I kind of, it's like I'm a completely different person, and I've had my own, you know, healing experience and journey, but coming through TEA, it's really just kind of blown the ceiling off.
Yeah, it's like really just cracked you open and expanded you to a new level on every level, right? Like
on
it's
every
really
level.
It is hard to put into words. I totally understand that. And that's why I like having you guys here to tell me, you know, to explain to us from your take, from your perspective, and from your transformation, because I can sit here all day and say, hey, it's a multi-dimensional healing and it will change you on every level. But what does that really mean? And it's different for everyone, and everyone takes away what they need specifically. Although the women who come into this collective, we have so many similarities, it's almost freaky, right? Like we've definitely walked a lot of the same paths in different ways, but we can all relate to so many things. Like we've already talked about kind of having that difficulty speaking our truth, which kind of goes with confidence in yourself and that self-worth. We've all struggled with that. Visibility fears, deeply rooted money fears is a big one. And we all know I've talked about my own openly for years now. And I think that's just something that we're always healing. But I know for you, that was a really big one. And you already mentioned the fact that, you know, obviously the investment was scary to you, which that's totally natural. But I know that we talked recently and you said you had consciously noticed some massive shifts with your wealth relationship and just that whole aspect. So tell me, I guess, like, what has that shift been for you kind of before and after TEA, speaking of those deeply rooted money fears and that wealth shift for you? Because this program was not about building wealth, technically.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
So I stayed home with my son. I have a 4-year-old son, and my husband goes out and works. So I have this, and it's been here for a while, probably only since, you know, I moved into being the stay-at-home caregiver, where I don't really contribute anything to the family, and my husband earns the money. Therefore, I have to kind of, everything that I do has to revolve around my husband's work and the income that he's bringing in, like what we can afford to do. I never even consider that, you know, that I could actually, you know, earn money. I don't know why. I've earned money in the past.
Yes.
I don't know why. And actually, I had to really convince my husband. I always feel like I have to ask permission. I really had to convince my husband. I'm just hanging up on him right now. I forgot to put this on Do Not Disturb.
No problem.
So that was really clever. But he does this thing where he tends to just keep calling me back.
I get it. It's all good.
He must have heard me talking about him. Like he must have been
right. Literally.
Yeah. So I had to convince him that this was worth the investment. And I mean, bless my husband. He always, this probably says more about me and our relationship, but I tend to get what I want quite a bit.
Yes, but regardless, you had money fears about this, and those were deeply rooted.
They were deeply rooted. And I'm still working through those. But what I noticed through TEA, and part of this may have actually come from the Money Manifestation Challenge that you did just before that as well. Was that I can actually catch my thoughts when they're involving money now. So, you know, when I have some kind of thought come up about not being able to afford something, I'm able to kind of step back and kind of look at this thought and kind of see where it's coming from, and try and change the energy of that. But I think there was just this greater sense of confidence and belief in myself that came from TEA that I'm worthy of, you know, earning money, spending money. I still struggle with spending money on clothes. for some reason.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I
I get it. But you know, it's small, it's those baby steps, one step
yeah.
at a time. And when you look at it from December to now, that's been massive for you.
Yeah. I've just decided to, I mean, partway through TEA, I signed up for my final shamanic healing training, and that's, you know, a couple of $1,000. And I wasn't able to go to it because our borders were closed here in Australia, so I couldn't go to the West Coast to do it. But it's coming here in September. It's going to cost more because it's a live-in retreat. But I'm kind of like, you know what? No worries. I'm just going to pay for that. You know, I did my Reiki training. I've got another level to do, and I've just signed up for another. I just love doing training for some reason.
Yes, I get it.
And so yeah, I might not want to spend money on clothes for myself, but investing in myself is something that that I'm a lot more comfortable with, and I no longer feel like I have to justify it to my husband in terms of, but now I can make money because I have this training. Like, it's just like, you know, it's just something that I want to do.
And that's huge.
We're gonna pay money for it.
Really big. Yeah. And you had like a massive big, really big money win, I guess. I don't know if you want to you don't have to share the specifics, but maybe just an insight to kind of what that looked like, because it was such a quantum leap, I think.
It was really huge because with all of those money fears that I'd had, I was quite controlling around money within our family, which sounds horrible because my husband earns the money, and then he complains that he's not allowed to spend it. But I was kind of like, always like, no, we have to keep the money. We can't spend it unless it's on something that we can justify, like a training, apparently. We've got to keep it all. And we get into these big fights about it. And he wanted to do something, and I just had this moment where I just realized I had to just let it all go, and I just had to say
surrender.
Yes to him. Surrender. I had to surrender. I had to say yes to him because, and I think it was because I'd heard a conversation between my mum and a family friend about how we just allow our spouses to do what makes them happy. And I could kind of see all of these fears that I have kind of shifting, and as I was able to surrender and let go, and he was trying to convince me of something, so taking out some of our retirement savings to pay for something, I was really I was contracting and holding on. I released into it, and we actually went further, and I decided that this was actually a blessing, you know, that the universe was offering us a way, because at the moment, because of COVID, our government's laying us to access our retirement savings, a way of being able to clear our debt so that we can move forward without that stranglehold of you know, being in debt. And
which
so,
is
so
big.
we were able to do that. It is really big. So it was something like,
I mean, if you looked at you like a year ago, that would not have happened. None of that would have happened. And that's okay. And that's so many of us. And that's just like something that not a lot of us talk about openly. I talk about this openly because I know it's a real problem for us. Like these deeply rooted money fears. And that's that scarcity and lack programming and that DNA that we've inherited, that we have now learned and been able to, for you to kind of deprogram and shift and regenerate, literally like regenerate your DNA and your cells. And this is how now it's coming into your physical world. Just 6 months later, you're seeing those transformational, tangible shifts, right? Which is mind-blowing. It's so huge.
So now I'm kind of like, money in, money out, like, and that, it is just energy, right?
That's it. Learning the frequency of money and energy, and that's also tied back down to self-worth, right? Because those two are so interconnected. And again, for the women in this group, we have some issues with our self-worth. We have some issues with money, those relationships, I guess, relationship with self, relationship with money, relationships in general. And it's hard. And it's like, we just kind of spin in circles doing the same things, wondering why we're not getting somewhere different. But it really comes, it's not the mindset stuff that's changing that. It's not, yes, that's part of it, but we have to go further. We have to really look at where that stems from, do that kind of inner child work, that ancestor work, energy healing, all of that stuff to be able to actually see those shifts, right? And you've done that. So I really wanted to touch on that, because that is like, it's just mind-blowing to me. And I'm so proud of you for everything you've done. It's just like, and like your energy and your aura, right? it has expanded. Like it's just
funny you should say
huge
that,
and radiant.
I went and did Reiki training a couple of weeks ago, and I laid on the table, and the guy that was teaching Reiki, he went, "Oh, so her aura was about that. Your aura's all the way up." I was thinking, like, you know, he feels into your aura and everything's like, yeah, maybe it's because you just had a healing, because, you know, we just had a healing. I'm like, no, it's not.
You're like, yeah, you're like, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, sorry. My phone's like,
That's
it's
okay.
getting low on battery. This is our struggle with technology, but exactly that. When we do that deep, deep, deep work, we clear out our aura, and which allows us to expand our energy and hold that frequency, which allows us to receive, to activate those receiving codes, those wealth codes, those abundance codes, and actually just step into that highest version of ourselves. We're no longer blocked, right? And that's essentially what you have done. So before my phone dies, I want to ask you a couple questions, but if you have a favorite, like your favorite part about TEA, or your most unexpected part about TEA that you loved, is there anything that comes to mind? I know it's kind of a vague and hard question, but
it is a big and hard question because I liked it all.
Yeah. Was there anything that you found particularly, I feel like shadow integration was like, I think that was kind of a big unexpected for a lot of
everyone.
us. Yeah. And I think that was kind of the key to the real cracking open and expanding and and getting that flow and movement, because without that shadow work, we're not moving forward, right?
Yeah, because like you said before, with the mindset, I mean, you can do all the mindset work in the world, that you know, you can do it all, but it's not going to do anything if you don't actually get to the root of everything and dig it up. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of like having a piece of land and, you know, constantly pulling out the weeds to grow your garden, but you actually haven't dealt with, you know, the nutritional content, or whatever it is, of the soil, the nutrients within the soil. You actually haven't addressed the soil and why the weeds are growing and why the plants aren't growing.
And I think this right here is the new paradigm, the new earth, this new shift that we are going into is multidimensional healing. It's no longer just going to therapy or doing mindset work or scratching the surface. It's literally like, how deep can we go? How much can we uncover? How uncomfortable can we get? And that's how we rise and evolve and expand and create this new shift, right? Which is just incredible. But for you, I think, like, what would you say was kind of your most transformational healing, or what stood out to you as far as healing wise? I know we've already touched on a lot of things, but looking at your transformation from then and now, what kind of stands out to you as kind of the most expansive healing area that you've done?
Well, I actually really didn't think I didn't think I had a problem with money. I just thought that was the way things were. And
that's
everyone else who was talking about everything that they've healed, they were just being a little bit show-offy and fancy pants. And, you know, and that perhaps that they had some kind of luck or hidden kind of thing that they weren't telling the world about. Like maybe they had a sugar daddy, or like, I don't know.
Right.
And I don't have that stuff, therefore I cannot I couldn't possibly dream of you know, feeling better about money, or and
I think because money is such a deeply rooted fear, and it's this it's just this whole issue of money is deeply rooted, which has been generational for you, which it has been for me, which it has been for every woman in this collective. We don't always know that that's kind of the root of the problem, and that's kind of the irony of TEA, is this program was not created for, you know, wealth in particular. It wasn't leading with money, but in the end, that was one of the biggest transformations, because it's all interconnected, right? That money is attached to self-worth and visibility and showing up, that throat chakra, all of those things. It's all interconnected. So you can't just touch on one thing anymore. You can't just be like, I want to heal my throat chakra and speak publicly and confidently. But you have to own your self-worth. You have to unlock those receiving codes, those wealth codes, those abundance codes, all of that stuff. So it's just like, we literally just took a fine tooth comb and like went through everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah,
your
just
throat
dig it
chakra
up.
can be open and you can be as expressive as you want, but unless you
Right.
heal your relationship with money, you're not going to feel comfortable asking people for money or saying, this is the price for my service, and, you know,
and getting
and
to that
valuing
level.
your
That full level of freedom, which, you know, freedom comes from within, wealth comes from within, but again, they're interconnected. So if you're not, you know, valuing yourself enough to receive money, you're never going to be able to financially be free in that area. And so it's just about that whole emotional, spiritual, financial, energetic freedom, I think, was kind of like what we really just kind of unlocked with this kind of,
look, we did everything.
it wasn't planned for me because this was channeled, but I thought it was cool. And I think that you just really nailed all of those things. So yeah, is there anything else you wanted to share, or is there anything you want to say to others considering joining TEA, but of course having those fears around it?
I think that if anyone's having fear about joining TEA, I mean, it's fine for me to say just do it, but I think just consider why you're holding yourself back. Like, what's getting in the way? Where are those fears coming from? What are you afraid of? And then, you know, the fears are going to keep coming up, but if you're kind of really feeling called to it, like I just kept coming back, like just jump feet first. Like
intuition, right?
Yeah.
It was just an intuitive pull.
yeah, it was. And the best things that I've ever done in my life have just been things where I've gone, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm just going to do it anyway. And the details are going to figure themselves out. And they do.
TA is kind of one of those programs where I can never sit here and tell you every aspect of it because it is so multidimensional, multifaceted, and you're going to take away what you need specifically. So yeah, we cover certain topics, but every individual's healing is so different. Their expansion, their awakening is so different. But you'll take away what you need and then some. That's what we've seen.
And it was amazing how we all came from such diverse backgrounds, different businesses, different business ideas, different things we wanted to achieve, but these common threads were just
and some women not even in business, just secret healers or literal teachers who are just people who are wanting to do better, to have that, you know, they have this purpose to give back, to help people. That's your healer inside, right? That's if you're called towards TEA, you are a healer inside, that's for sure. It just probably hasn't quite come to the surface yet for a lot of you, but and then one of the other things I want to say is you really stepped unapologetically into your intuitive leadership. I think you know, I always kind of thought you were very connected to your intuition before, but during and after TEA, you were so much more connected to your intuition and really stepped into that intuitive leadership, and not necessarily just in business, just in life. I think we can be intuitive leaders in our life, right?
I am. I get messages from people who are not clients, who I may never work with. And if I feel inclined to offer them healing or a message that I've received, then I just do it.
Exactly. And before, you would have second guessed and talked yourself out of it, right?
It would have been like, these people are going to think I'm crazy. Like, who am I to, you know, get my nose all up in their business? And but I've learned that sometimes when messages are coming through, they need to be shared, otherwise I end up with a headache. And
so it's just learning to become that open channel for and with the universe, and life becomes, it's just new, it's different, and it's very interesting. So before my phone dies, I want you to just tell us if you have any offers. First of all, where can we find you? Tell us about your Instagram or anything that you have, and any offers. Hopefully I don't get cut off.
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at the Inner Sacred, so underscores between the,
and I will post that. I will share your links.
So you can find me there. I'm probably there more than Facebook, but you can find me on Facebook. I've got a Facebook page too. I'm working on creating an online toolbox of ritual for people. So the Sacred Soul Box, it's coming together, which I never would have done without TEA, by the way. So this is huge and expansive and very vulnerable for you to put your gift out there like that, right? This is putting my rituals, my connection, and out there and guiding people, like just offering basically a toolbox. Take what you want. Self-empowered to begin with.
It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
self-empowered, which I love too.
It's all about connection, because I think that we don't find our truth, we don't find anything, we don't find clarity, we don't find freedom until we find connection. Connection is the key. So yeah, so you can find me on there.
Where can they find these offers? Has this one launched yet?
It hasn't launched yet. I'm
Okay.
going to create another video today.
Okay, great. So we can stay tuned for that, and I will be sharing on my
really
Instagram.
Really
when you're sharing stuff, your offers, I'll be sharing on my Instagram, so
cool.
anyone can see that for sure. Do you have any other offers right now?
I've just started opening up face-to-face healings. So obviously you'd have to be in Newcastle for that, where I am in New South Wales, Australia. But some of those can also be offered online. So it's just that now I'm going to have one day a week, I'm going to have a space that I can work from, and just, you know, having a nice quiet space where I can even do online work with people. So shamanic healing, meditations, Lemurian healings. In the future there'll be
sound healing
as well. I don't know how that's going to go online, but I'd probably bring sound into the shamanic and the Lemurian healings as well.
Amazing.
And then I've got the retreat in April next year.
Yes. That's so much magic. I will post your links, and I will be posting when you are launching stuff. Feel free to tag me, and I will be sharing your stuff, of course, because as you first mentioned, your soul box, right?
Yeah, the sacred soul box.
I was gonna say soul bucks, because I say it's like Starbucks for the soul. So it's called like that's pretty self-explanatory. If you want some soul bucks, you're gonna need this, and I'm super excited to check it out myself, because it is so magical, so expansive, and so
I'm really
healing.
Excited. I never would have done this. Like, you pushed me to record my first meditation and actually put it out there. Like, and since then I'm like,
I've really pushed you out of your comfort zone and just keep going. And now you are, it pushes you out of that comfort zone, but into your magic zone. And that is where you receive everything you've ever dreamed of.
And then the magic becomes comfortable.
Yes.
And then that becomes your new comfort zone.
And you're like, I am worthy of this. I am worthy of every damn part of this. And that's amazing. So
and I'm going to share my message. And if you don't like it, then I love you, but you might need to find somewhere else.
Bye. Exactly. Yeah, you've come so far, and honestly, we can't even really. We don't even have, like, we need like days and books over our transformations, because it's just insane. But we really just scratched the surface. But I really appreciate you sharing with us and just going a little bit into some of your transformation and some of TEA. And I'm so proud of you. So excited for you. And like I said, I'll be sharing your offerings, and I can't wait until the soul box is released.
Yeah, me too. So and I have to say before we go that I'm really grateful for having met you and having that little nudge to join TEA, and just everything that you've done.
I'm so grateful for you. It's just been such an amazing connection. And like every woman that joins this collective, our souls are just interweaved. We're just like this real tapestry. It does, and a lifetime sisterhood. We're still connected. We are still connected. We still alumni, and so you're not just on your own. Of course, we're not connected as frequently, but we are still there, and we're always holding space. And so I love that we get to stay a part of this sisterhood. So
me too.
So anyways, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Share it, and I'll be sharing your links and any new offers that you have, so make sure to tag me in those. And I will let you go enjoy your day. You too. Okay,